Now, after this point, German naval laws, socialism, industrialization in Germany, the Kaiser decided to make what would be a very grave error, and he entered Germany into the First World War. You don't need to know exactly what happens in the First World War for this plotline. This isn't a military history, it's a political one. So really, all you need to know is that Germany struggled through the First World War. Industrialization means you have factories, but it doesn't really mean you are the strongest military in the world. And what happened was Germany's place on the map meant that Germany really struggled to get food and medicine and resources into the country whilst the war went on. Their trucks with food couldn't enter Germany, boats couldn't enter Germany, and it meant that Germany needed to feed itself. And unfortunately, from your prior learning, you probably know that Germany was not fully capable of feeding themselves. So over the case of 4 years of war, a long time, I like you to imagine, think back if you're in year 11, going back to year 8, that entire time you're hungry. That entire time, if you're ever sick, you might not get any medicine. That entire time your clothes are basically tearing and there's no new clothes to replace them. The people of Germany became essentially sick of war. They got really tired of it, and in fact there were lots of, should we say, phrases going around. I think it was "down with the government, down with war" was being spray painted over places. This was not a good look for the country because it basically said that the people hated the Kaiser. And it all came to a head in 1918 for Germany, where basically the Kaiser lost it. So it wasn't just people who were living there, like you can see above me. It was actually everyone. The soldiers themselves were sick of war. And in fact, the Kaiser, because he's head of the armed forces, ordered a number of sailors, people who work on battleships in the Navy, to go and take their ship out to sea to fight England. And they refused. They said no. And when a military officer refuses to do as they're told, it's actually called a mutiny. So these sailors began to mutiny. They began to not do as the Kaiser said because they were sick of it. They were having an awful time. So the Kaiser decided to send the army to stop them. The thing is, the army was also sick of the Kaiser. So once the army got to the sailors, they turned around and started mutinying as well. And in fact, those sailors and soldiers began to team up with the workers in Germany, who also were sick of the Kaiser, and they began to take over different cities in Germany and get rid of the governments that followed the Kaiser and replace them with their own people in charge. The Kaiser lost control of Germany, and I'm not kidding, it was chaos. Whole country is splitting into different versions and places. And the Kaiser decided it's not worth it. The Kaiser decided if they find me, they're going to kill me. So I'm going to get on a train and I'm going to leave. And in fact, the Kaiser left Germany never to return. He abdicated, he quit the job, and he vanished off into the night. Germany had no person in charge anymore. We'll get to what Germany does later, but you need to know the consequences of war. Because the thing is, you need to know what this war does to the country, because it didn't just make people hungry. It affected the way the country was going to be ran for the next 10 to 15 years. So firstly, it made Germany bankrupt. Germany had spent obviously loads of money on basically making new weapons and paying their soldiers and doing whatever, but all of that time, the factories that made them were not building new products to sell. So all that money from industrialization was not coming into Germany anymore. So basically, Germany had loads of savings and just spent them all, and even more. It was in massive debt. In fact, Germany had borrowed money from other countries. Germany had to pay all the people whose husbands had died and sons had died in the war, because they needed to pay for those people's livelihoods now. Germany had kind of shot itself in the foot. On top of that, it had divided German society. I don't know how to describe it to you, but when factory owners earn loads of money off the war while you're, should we say, feeling like you haven't earned enough money, or your family are hungry, you're not going to be very pleased with the people around you. In fact, right next to my head is some pictures of some women who worked in factories during the war. A lot of people found that as an outrage for women to be taking part in work, even though there was no one else to fill those jobs. And it created, should we say, divides between men and women and how they saw themselves. And the last thing is that it made Germany politically unstable. Obviously, the Kaiser has left. But when we say politically unstable, we basically mean that we're not sure how they're going to organise themselves. We're not sure who's in charge. And sure, the Kaiser's gone, which meant loads of different groups started to appear, basically saying that we can run the country better than the Kaiser did. And it introduced some extremists who we're going to talk about later, like communists and Nazis, but it also introduced other groups that had way weirder political ideas that we're going to talk about later. See, the last one you'll recognise as well, politically unstable, is that the people in Germany now hate their government. They hate the people who are running the country, which means it's going to be a real struggle to make them to make them happy again. It's going to be a struggle to get them to vote for anyone who's in charge. If you can imagine, when those people ended World War One, we'll talk about them next time, but they signed the Treaty of Versailles. They agreed to end the war. The people of Germany called them criminals, the November criminals, because they signed the end of the war in November. They said they were basically betraying their country. And if you can imagine that you're in a country where you think the person in top is evil, criminal, betrayer, it's not a good look for you supporting anyone in the future. But anyways, here's some questions that you can answer to make sure you know about this topic. So, what did the experience of war do to Germany? How did the war end for Germany, about that mutiny? What happened that made the war go bankrupt, Germany? What did the war do to divide German society? And what did the war do to make Germany politically unstable? If you can answer those, you know what you're talking about. I really recommend looking at the textbook for this one. But good luck, off you go.